to Stanford. It's wonderful to see you here. Thank you all who came to join us in this event. We're here today to, as John was saying, to honor and celebrate an individual who has given a great deal to the web. And the reason that, as John indicated, that we want to do this is because, from my perspective, as a person who's been in evangelical education, for open standards and open web for a very long time, one of the things that I'm beginning to discover is that there's a disparity. The younger generation, because we're not formally educated typically, we are missing out on history and what shaped us in the original days. And for those of you, I hear a lot of crying for, I want to just know how. I don't really care why. I want the techniques, not the philosophy. And the problem with that, as is the problem with anything, is that if you really don't have the deeper understanding, you get to a certain ceiling and you can't get past it. Okay, so if you're a musician, let's say, and you don't learn how to do your scales, right, well, at some point you are going to, you may be very innovative and interesting, creative soul on the piano or on the guitar, but without the skill set, there's a point that you're going to hit the glass ceiling. And so this is the part of the concern that I have, and part of the reason that I'm very excited to be here today and to be part of this. So to be aware of that which came before, because that which came before is also the present and also the future. So to bring those conversations into the current conversation and hopefully ensure that there isn't a great divide between those of us who were pioneers, if you will, and the new blood that is creating this great innovative time, okay? So just to kind of unify our industry. And I can think of no one who has worked harder to unify our industry than Bill Cullifer of the webprofessionals.org. He is here today, and actually we are honoring Bebo White. And Bebo, of course, I actually met Bebo through Bill Cullifer. So this is a very long story. To make it simple, essentially we came together at some early point in the web. Let's see, I think we first met in Hawaii, was that it? Bebo? We met in Hawaii the first time at www. Is that correct? Before that? Yes, before that maybe. Very long enough ago. So this unification has been very helpful in my life, and since that point, I've had a lot of influence through Bebo. We've gone on, gosh, we've been up to Japan. We've been on a geek cruise together where we got to teach and cruise the Caribbean, which was really, really fun. And of course, he sat in my class. It was a full-day workshop on CSS and made comments the entire day. But yeah, not that he's contrary or devil's advocate in any way, But
stole a lot of those ideas.
I stole. Oh, you've stolen a lot of those ideas. Well, isn't that? See, that this is the point. That's great. See, what goes around comes around. Yeah. So, at any rate, I would like to pass this over for a few minutes to Mr. Cullifer, Bill Cullifer of the Web Professionals Organization, so that he can kind of talk a little bit about Bebo, education and unification in our industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly, and thank you, Open Web. It is my pleasure to be here in the city, which I spent a fair amount of my youth. How many, any Ray Lyman Wilbur kids here? Any Palo Alto High School? Yeah, okay. On behalf of webprofessionals.org to honor Bebo White, SLAC, retired Dr. White, for his many contributions to the World Wide Web and to web professionals everywhere for paving the way for occupational titles within the web. And to give a little bit of a history lesson, if I may, briefly on how I met Bebo. I think it's important to point out that back in 1996, I was interviewed by the San Francisco Chronicle. This is not actually the photograph of the individual that was taken next to me, but I was actually featured in the San Francisco Chronicle on a story about integrating business into the design and technical fields. And so they put a picture of a geek looking like old guy like me next to a kid with red hair. And Bebo called me because he thought that was a fascinating notion. And I think he was a little skeptical.
That's because I thought that was you.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, this is Dr. White here to the left. Bebo participated in the first annual Webmaster Summit we had in Lake Tahoe in 1997, and contributed really to what is our pathway resource for web professionals today. And it was a big contribution because we had folks there from Adobe, Microsoft, and a handful of other community colleges, and including one of Bebo's colleagues from Stanford, or from not only Stanford, but Berkeley. And so, as a result of that, interest in promoting business and legal related topics to the design and development community, Bebo co-wrote a book on e-commerce and internet law back in 1997. And the interesting thing about the book is it wasn't a bestseller, candidly, but I think it paved the way, well, fair enough, I think it was ahead of its time, really.
Absolutely.
1998 to introduce what I believe is an integrated topic of interdisciplinary approach to the web was novel, really, in many ways. Having said that, what it did do, I think very successfully, was open up the dialogue for that interdisciplinary approach to web topics. And we're a long ways away from nirvana in that point. If any of you are recently graduated from school, either computer science or the arts, you know that unfortunately we're not where we need to be in terms of developing curriculum resources in an academic setting. So it did actually pave the way in many ways. And just to show that Bebo is a great guy and likes to have a lot of fun, I thought I'd find this photo. You remember this, Bebo, Las Vegas? So what's interesting about this photo, I think it's representative of this guy, Bebo, Dr. White, who we know and we're honoring today because not only is he a very smart guy, and one of the first technical webmasters in the country. He worked for CERN. I think on a sabbatical he participated in CERN, but came back to Stanford to develop what really was the country's first website. So we thought that was a terrific asset to have, and so we asked him to participate in a series of events, and have actually over the years co-participated and presented numerous events around the world. And so here's Bebo doing the Elvis Presley impersonation along with my webmaster and myself. You know what's interesting about this, to put this into context, and why I think this is important to you as an audience, is that you know we can learn from individuals like Bebo White. I talked about the integration of interdisciplinary education. At the end of the day, you know, Bebo has introduced to this country and to this world things like web engineering, learning from the software development space. And I think we can learn from history, and I think we can learn from folks that have actually been down this path before relating to various integrated topics. And so for that, I'm real grateful to Bebo for that. So I wanted to share another reason why I think this is important. And I don't think really Bebo really appreciates or understands how much influence that he's had in the webprofessionals.org organization's interest in promoting education, particularly at the secondary level. We realized early on that integrating topics into the university level would be rather difficult, so we spent a lot of our time focusing in on the secondary market to introduce these topics at the high school and the community college level. So recently I got a letter from somebody that basically thanked WOW and those individuals that have supported the WOW for introducing web-related topics to secondary students in the thousands nationwide. And I thought it was a pretty telling story, because basically what she said was, not only thank you for introducing these topics and making these resources available, but also there are students that have actually graduated with web design degrees today as a direct result of the types of resources that we put together for high school students. In total, the contribution's been about $1 million in terms of scholarships, directly attributed to this organization's efforts, and Bebo's been a big part of making that happen. And then lastly, I just wanted to show you a video, just so you get a sense for how sharp some of these individuals are at the high school level, and I think this is a tribute to Bebo White. This is a short video on white web standards that I think is pretty telling about this effort to promote web standards at the secondary level in this country. And again, these are
a lot of freedom. You can work anywhere you really want. At a desk, outside, inside, in your bed, in a box with a fox, sitting on the toilet. You could even work on web design with your pants on the ground. Could work on web design on the moon, as long as there's internet and oxygen. Yeah, oxygen's kind of important. You could work on web design in a library, perhaps the study with a broomstick, or a revolver if you prefer, even with Colonel Mustard if you like.
Pop quiz. What does HTML stand for? Hypertext markup language? False. How to meet ladies.
You know, as a web designer, you can work as your own boss. You don't have to worry about being fired unless you decide to fire yourself. But if you're your own boss, I would kind of rethink doing that. So you want to be a web designer? Cool, but there's a little thing that you may want to get familiar with before you start cranking out any old website. And that, my friend, is web standards.
Alright, imagine restaurants without standards. If restaurants didn't have standards, cooks and waiters wouldn't wash their hands. Cooks and waiters didn't wash their hands, they'd prepare our food, we would get lockjaw, and we would die.
Or imagine roads without standards. People would try to drive their segways out onto the road. They would die. Standards set guidelines so that people can see all the content available on your webpage, particularly people with disabilities.
Standards say you should provide alternative text to images on your website. That way, somebody who's visually impaired could use a screen reader program like JAWS or Orca to know what is being displayed on your webpage. Being standards compliant means that your website will be able to be read or parsed by indexing services like Google. This means if somebody searches for your website, you're more likely to come up in the results. That sounds kind of dorky, so let's just say that robots working for Google will be able to understand your website.
So that's why you should follow internet standards. Unless you really have something against blind people or robots, there's no reason not to follow standards. And plus, there's really nothing that can beat the adrenaline rush of passing that validation check on your website.
So if I may, there's just one more that's 2 minutes that I have to show you because Bebo, really, I want you to know that you are the catalyst to make all of this happen.
What up, webprofessionals.org? We're going to talk about why HTML5 is awesome. It's the future. I wonder where I am right now. Well, with geolocation, you are right here. Wow! Got forms. It's got built-in form validation. New input types. Man, I can't find my lolcats. Well, with input type equals search, you can. Wow! Well, wow! That was really fast. Well, with HTML5, you get faster page loading because you don't need those heavy UI libraries. Wow, this is some bad code. Ew. Here, have some HTML5. Well, thanks. Check it out. With HTML5, you have new structural tags. Header! A-side. You got a footer. With HTML5, you can divide your blog into sections and articles. Wow. Remember when the doc type was doc type, HTML public, blah, 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 blah? Why would the browser even care about that? Well, it does now. It's just doc type, HTML. Wow. You know, you used to have to declare the car set as meta, HTTP quib, content type, content, text, HTML, car set, UTF-8. Well, now you can just do meta car set. Webprofessionals.org and get a better mobile browsing experience thanks to the enhancements of HTML5. So how is Adobe helping push HTML5 through Macs? Well, previously 5.5 and now has Line which supports video and SUV tech. And overall better support for System 3 and System 5, so you can't go wrong. Who supports this awesome new technology? Safari, Firefox, Chrome, and Opera. This is brought to you by webprofessionals.org.
So every year we're able to sponsor 200 high school kids from around the country to participate in that contest. We think it's a fantastic thing. It integrates interdisciplinary topics as well as web standards. Bebo, thank you for your contribution, sir. You were the one that helped make this happen, and we applaud you for that.
Bill Cullifer, that was really fun. I mean, you know, those kids, that's pretty inspirational. And I think that the message here is that obviously the earlier we start, the better it gets. So at any rate, at this point, I would actually like Bebo to join me on the stage. We're going to actually open up for Q&A. You can ask any question about the web and its history and its infrastructure. And if you ask good questions, you'll win a prize. We have some delicious books, courtesy of O'Reilly here. So this encourages people to get up and participate in this wonderful opportunity. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Doctor.
Thanks, Miles. Thanks, Bill. I was sitting down there thinking, is this going to be what my eulogy is like? Is this a precursor of my funeral? Oh, wow, I hope not too. Anyway, it's a terrific honor for me to be here. And I want to thank John as well for making it possible. So that's it.
Well, maybe talk a little bit about what you're talking about today, to get together and get started on maybe where your mindset is at with data and doing it.
Okay. Well, I've got a session coming up immediately after this on linked open data. And how many of you are familiar with that term? Of course, Charles. Basically, let me give you a summary in a couple of words about what that means. And that is, we are moving clearly away from the old model of the web as simply being a web of documents, or a web of media, or a web of pages. And in the case of linked open data, it's an attempt to define for the future a web of data. What do I mean by that? I mean a situation where you can really take all of the data that is on the web in the hopes of turning it into knowledge. The web has a hell of a lot of data, but it's not connected in a lot of semantic and logical ways. So how can we really take that and make it into something truly meaningful? An example I think most of you can deal with is that how should data mashups work? Instead of the ad hoc way that we've seen them work, or we see them working right now. How do you bring data together to create more meaningful content? The other thing I'll throw out, because this was a talk that was rejected by Molly and John, is that I just gave a talk. I just gave a talk last week about the web of things, basically addressing that notion about what does it mean in the future when you have natural and man-made objects existing on the web. You know, and not necessarily representations of them. So you ask yourself, what does Molly on the web mean? Well, it's not just her homepage. I'm in trouble. That's exactly right. Something. If Molly had a URI, tattooed on her forehead, what would that give? What information could be broadcast or received by this URI? So she's interacting with her as an object, not some sort of representation of her like a page.
Are you objectifying me?
I'm
not sure that's allowed.
Well, I mean, it's better to use you as an example than me. Okay. So, you know, that is a direction in which I think I see the web going. Because, once again, that supports this concept of the web of data. Is that, you know, having an object on the web that was able to be dynamic and receive information, receive data, and contribute information to sort of this worldwide repository of data, I think is something that is technically possible now. We really have to figure out whether or not we should do it. There's no question about whether or not we can do it. But anyway, that's one of the directions in which I see the web going. So.
Okay, we only have to
blah, blah, blah.
Thank you, Bebo. Let's take a couple. We do need to move the day along because of some of the delays. So we'll go ahead and do a couple. So this gentleman here.
Given the original vision of the web was both read and write, and we did really good with the read in the beginning, I was wondering if you could maybe comment on how well you think we're doing on the writing part, or the authoring part of the web today.
Not well enough, but you're exactly right. I mean, the original proposal for the web, you know, really was one that was a read-write web. And some of the early things, like for example, how many of you remember Netscape? Really, I'm showing my age. You remember Netscape allowed you to annotate pages, and actually allowed you in instances to share those annotations. And that got lost. And nowadays, maybe it was because it was ahead of its time. But clearly, the whole social aspect of being able to read and write and share is a vision that was seen very early on, but the time just wasn't ready. Does that make sense?
Thanks.
What's your area of interest and expertise, by the way?
Oh, she's going to give you something.
Yeah, I'm just
Choose
screaming.
well. Answer well.
What is, you come along. Yes, okay, you may choose the one you want.
Les has got a question. Come on.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
there's a question back
Yes,
there.
sir.
I developed a webpage for a government agency in 1995.
Woohoo!
They thought it was really cute, but they didn't, well, what they said outright was, but who's going to get information off of a computer?
Exactly right.
Obviously,
I don't
things have
know.
changed since then, but I was trying to put my finger on when, in terms of the older style managers and the institutions, when they started to finally get that, because I lost track of when that was.
Well, you know, I think I can comment once again as a historical artifact, the way I've been portrayed. You know, it might be very hard for people in this room to believe that the web was not an immediate success. That everybody, when they first saw it, thought that it was the greatest thing they'd ever seen in their lives. That genuinely, in the early days, it took a lot of evangelism to people like Miles and a number of others, you know, to help people realize the significance of it and the fact that it was not just some passing fad, and the fact that computing and the internet was really a viable way to distribute information, a viable technology for distributing information that would last. And surely, we're talking about for government agencies, those were probably some of the ones that will last on board. Does that respond to your question?
Doesn't give me an answer, but sure.
I don't know the answer, so I just vamped there a little bit. But no, I don't know that you can really nail it down that way. As I said, even the sales of the web was very hard at the beginning. Even at CERN, it was not a success at CERN straight away. Yeah. Yes, sir?
Actually, Christian was
Oh,
first,
Chris.
and then we'll go to you,
Chris.
and then we're going to have to stop that because we have to catch up with time. So Christian, and then to this gentleman.
I found the web when I worked on the radio, and I was bored of the radio not being read-write, that it took ages to be appearing there, or you have to spend money or commit a crime to be mentioned on radio. It was easier on the internet. Not to commit crime but to be mentioned on the internet. And I see now that we're coming full circle, because a lot of the traffic in America is streaming TV shows on the internet, and people are streaming for a faster internet only for TV programs. So the net neutrality thing, how do you stand on that? How do you feel that? Like your baby taken away?
Okay, well, my comment for that, Chris, too, is that, once again, from a historical perspective, I'm sort of an old hippie, and so I think everything should be free. And I hate to see any of those restrictions, especially in the case of net neutrality, where the restrictions are driven totally by the profit motive. I hate to see those those kinds of things occur. Now, in terms of the web, the way the web is being used, there was a, I don't know how recent it was, but some of you may have seen one of the talks by Kevin Kelly, one of the executive directors of Wired, and he was reflecting on the way in which Wired viewed the early web, and they viewed it as being TV, but only better. And Kevin admits at that point he thinks they were wrong in that case, is that so much more to it. It's clearly providing a mechanism for people to see TV, but I certainly do not hope that that's going to be a major perception of the way in which, of the strength of the web.
This gentleman here, yes.
Considering the origins of the web came from laboratories like CERN and SLAC, where do you see the role of like national laboratories or institutions of higher learning playing? How do you see them playing a role in the ongoing development versus the commercial developers like Google or machines?
That's an interesting question too. Let me give you another interesting story about the web at CERN. What some of you may be aware of the fact that the success of the web and its development at CERN lay primarily in the fact that physicists are very technophobic. They would rather spend their time doing physics, and anything having to do with computing is a waste of their valuable time. And so when they would have to travel between different labs, and they would have to learn a new system in order just to read their email, to them that was a gigantic pain. And so the web offered a solution to that. So basically then it really became, or proved itself as being a collaborative tool where content could be shared by anybody, anywhere, independent of format, independent of whatever computer you were looking at, and that had extreme power. In terms of what the national labs can do, I don't want to make a political statement, but certainly we're coming off a series of years where the national labs have been somewhat curtailed in what they have been able to do. I think they have great capabilities of taking technologies such as the web and using them for education. Once again, my challenge, as it were, about how do you take a lot of the content and turn it into knowledge. There's a great deal of effort that could go into national labs with respect to that. How do you take the collaborative capabilities, the networking capabilities of the web, and really leverage them in a way where you can really do collaborative science, those kinds of things.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your question. Thank you all for participating in this. One of the things that I really, the message that I'm hearing that I am really resounding with here is, you know, data versus knowledge. Okay, that gap is incredible. You know, we can build a lot of content, but if it isn't meaningful, useful, and available, there's a problem.
Somebody left their wallet.
There is a wallet up here, by the way, so, you know.
Is this my prize?
Yeah, no, actually, however, to wrap up the ceremony, we, on behalf of Open Web Camp 3 of John Folliott of webprofessionals.org, myself, all of the audience, a plaque to honor you, Bebo. And on behalf of us all, a little present for you and your lovely wife Nancy, who couldn't be with us today because she's so busy running around doing awesome things.
Thank you so much.